coroner's office. Do you have certain education, training, and background?
Yes.
And explain that to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury.
I went to medical school at the University of Connecticut School of Medicine. I did a pathology residency at Hartford Hospital in Connecticut.
I
did a surgical...
during the course of the autopsy.
Yes.
And did you utilize those as well to render your opinions?
Yes.
I'm going to start with what's clear that previously admitted Shakur had survived his wounds for some period of time.
Yes.
And a lot of what we see on these photographs are evidence of medical intervention.
That's correct.
Before the courtroom gets into the evidence, pay close attention to what is about to happen, because this testimony is going to build the medical foundation for one of the most important conclusions in the entire case. The witness is Dr. Lisa Gavin, a forensic pathologist and medical examiner with years of specialized training and experience. But there's an unusual complication here. Dr. Gavin did not personally perform the original autopsy. The doctor who did, Dr. Jordan, is deceased. So the question becomes, can a medical examiner reliably reach conclusions by reviewing another examiner's work? That is exactly what the prosecution is going to establish. And the records being discussed here are extensive: autopsy reports, investigation materials, photographs, medical records, toxicology information, and other identifying documentation. Then the testimony moves from credentials to something much more difficult to hear: the actual injuries. The photographs and medical evidence are going to show that this was not simply a case of someone being shot and immediately dying. According to the testimony, Shakur survived for a period of time and received significant emergency medical treatment before ultimately succumbing to his wounds. Watch how the testimony connects the physical evidence to the medical conclusion. We'll hear about a bullet entering the chest, damage to the lung, massive bleeding, surgery, another projectile entering through the thigh and damaging the abdomen, and ultimately the official determination of both cause and manner of death. And there's an important legal distinction waiting at the end. When a medical examiner says homicide, that is a medical classification, not automatically a declaration of who committed the crime. Keep that distinction in mind, because it matters.
You do solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give in this action shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
You may be seated. May I please have you state and spell your first and last name for the record?
Good morning. I'm Dr. Lisa Gavin, Lisagavin.
Thank you, Dr. Gavin. Mr. DiGiacomo, you may proceed.
Doctor, how are you employed?
I'm a forensic pathologist, medical examiner here in Clark County.
What does that mean you do for a living?
We determine the cause of death and the manner of death and sudden unexpected deaths.
And in order to hold the position that you do with the coroner's office, do you have certain education, training, and background?
Yes.
And explain that to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury.
I went to medical school at the University of Connecticut School of Medicine. I did a pathology residency at Hartford Hospital in Connecticut. I did a surgical pathology fellowship at Hartford Hospital in Connecticut. I did a forensic pathology fellowship in the Office of the Medical Investigator in New Mexico, and then I came here to Clark County. I have a medical license to practice here in the state of Nevada, and I'm board certified in anatomic pathology and forensic pathology.
How long overall have you been a forensic pathologist?
This September it'll be about 17 years practicing here.
So I'm going to guess that 30 years ago you were not at the autopsy of Tupac Shakur.
No, I was in medical school.
Have you in the past had to come in and testify to your opinions as to cause and manner of death in cases where you weren't the actual examiner at the table?
Yes.
Explain why that would happen.
We have people that have retired. We have doctors that have died. We have doctors that have gone to other locations in the country.
So when you are asked to review, what is it that you get to review in order to form your opinions and conclusions?
Most often it would be the investigation report from our office. It would be the autopsy report from the forensic pathologist that did the case. It could be photographs associated with the case. Could be medical records associated with the case. Could be any consultations or the like associated with the case.
In this particular case, do you know who the examiner was?
Yes,
Who was it?
it was Dr. Jordan.
And Dr. Jordan is no longer with us, correct?
Correct, Dr. Jordan had passed away.
In addition to what the medical examiner's office had, did you also get a copy of the photographs taken by crime scene analysts during the course of the autopsy?
Yes.
Here's the first major piece of context the jury needs to understand. Dr. Gavin is not simply looking at one photograph and making a guess. She explains that, when a forensic pathologist reviews a case previously handled by another examiner, the available evidence can include the investigation report, the original autopsy report, photographs, medical records, and related consultations. That matters because forensic conclusions are supposed to come from the totality of the evidence, not from one isolated image. There's also an important practical issue here. The original examiner, Dr. Jordan, is no longer alive. So the court is hearing from a qualified medical examiner who reviewed the existing documentation and photographs to form her own opinions. In other words, the testimony is building a bridge between the original examination and the evidence being presented in court today. And now the testimony is about to shift from credentials and methodology into the physical evidence itself. Once those photographs appear, the case becomes much more concrete. We're going to hear exactly what the medical team documented, what procedures were performed, and how the injuries affected Shakur's body. At this point, what do you think carries more weight? The photographs, the medical records, or the expert's interpretation of both together?
Yes.
And did you utilize those as well to render your opinions?
Yes.
I'm going to start with what's been previously admitted as State's Exhibit number 44. Now, as long as you don't click that mouse, there should be a nice little arrow that comes up and you can point to it. What are we looking at in State's Exhibit 44?
In the background is a green body bag, and the way that we sealed the body bag to preserve the body as evidence is we put this little blue tag through the eyelets of the zippers as they come together to demonstrate that the body was received, placed into that sealed body bag, and then received in the office with that seal intact at that time. Similarly, we also attached onto that area what will become the toe tag, the identifying marker for that particular body, that particular individual.
And if I zoom in on that, we're able to see that the name was Lassane Crooks, aka Tupac Shakur, date of death 9/13/96 at approximately 1600 or 4 p.m.
That's correct.
$45. What are we looking at, Doctor?
This is just opening up of the body bag, and then one of the first photos that was taken at the time that the body bag was opened, demonstrating the decedent and the condition that he was received in and the body bag.
And from reviewing the medical records that were part of the coroner's office file, did it appear that Mr. Shakur had survived his wounds for some period of time?
Yes.
And a lot of what we see on these photographs are evidence of medical intervention?
That's correct.
046. This is a facial shot. I know there's a ruler in the way, but this is a facial shot of Mr. Shakur.
Oh, that's correct.
And then we're not going to display all of his tattoos, but there were photographs taken, this is 47, to identify his various tattoos.
Correct.
So you can see on his right stomach there that says thug. And then if we go to 48, on the other side it says life. Correct?
Correct.
Okay. So now I want to get to his injuries, and I'm going to start with, well, I'll start with 49. What are we looking at here?
This is the right side of the body up by the chest area. You can see the right axilla or armpit in that region. And then you could see some of the sutures of what they call a thoracotomy incision, where they've cut into the side of the chest. And then just below that, this is an entrance gunshot wound.
And then just below that thoracotomy chest, there appears to be a stitched up area. I can move my mouse too, right there. What is that?
That's a sutured chest tube site.
So he had a tube there to help drain some of what was going on in his body.
Correct, and in the previous one that had all the medical intervention, you could see from the left side there was a similar chest tube on that left side.
From your review, were you able to determine sort of the path of this particular bullet?
Yes.
And what was that?
It entered here in the right lateral aspect of the chest, just below the axilla, the armpit, and then went across the right chest space, went across the right lung, and then ended up coming to rest in what we call the sternal notch. The sternal notch is a location...
This is where the medical testimony becomes especially significant. The doctor has now traced the path of one projectile through the chest. According to her testimony, it entered the right side of the chest just below the armpit, traveled across the chest and through the right lung, and ultimately came to rest near the sternal notch. That gives the jury a physical roadmap of the injury. But the path of the bullet is only part of the story. The real issue is what that injury did medically. The testimony describes a collapsed and bleeding lung, approximately 2 liters of blood accumulating in the chest cavity, emergency chest tube treatment, and surgery that ultimately involved removing the lung in an effort to control the bleeding. The witness also explains that Shakur had already experienced multiple episodes of becoming unresponsive. That evidence helps explain why the medical examiner reaches a conclusion about cause of death. This isn't simply there was a gunshot. The testimony connects the gunshot wound to catastrophic internal injuries and the medical consequences that followed. And remember, this is just one of the wounds being examined. The next evidence introduces another projectile and another serious injury, this time involving the abdomen. The question for the jury becomes how all of these injuries fit together into one medical conclusion.
The sternal notch is a location just between where your collarbones kind of meet up towards the center of your chest. So just beneath that, the projectile was recovered.
The nature of that type of wound, what did it physically do to him, his ability to breathe and those types of things?
The injury to the lung would have collapsed the lung and also caused the lung to bleed. And so it was documented within the medical records that he had about 2 liters of blood in his chest cavity when they put in the chest tube to try to save him. And similarly, they ended up removing that lung to try to save him and kind of clamp off the bleeding. And then he already had multiple episodes of not becoming responsive, so he wasn't able to breathe. He was bleeding out in that area from that injury.
Additionally, I guess I should have asked this when I was back on some of the prior pictures. We're going to see a lot of pictures, or we have seen some pictures of Mr. Shakur while he's alive. We're going to see some video of him alive. He certainly looks a lot skinnier in those pictures than he does in these pictures. Is there a reason why he's so bloated in these photographs?
After they've been on the life support system, you end up not being able to circulate the fluid in the body that they're trying to give you, and so it kind of seeps into the tissues, and it makes your tissues look kind of bloated and literally bloated.
I'm going to move on to his next wound, State's Exhibit number 51. What are we looking at here?
This is the right lateral aspect of his body, so his right flank and his lateral aspect of his right thigh. And then his back side of his right hand is also within this picture.
The ruler, though, is identifying what?
The ruler is around the right lateral aspect of his thigh, so the right thigh on the lateral side.
And what is that?
And that's an entrance gunshot wound.
And can you tell me the path that that bullet took?
Yes.
And go ahead.
That bullet entered in the lateral aspect of the right thigh and then went upwards into the abdomen and damaged his intestines. They ended up operating there and removed a portion of his intestines, and then during that surgery they recovered another projectile.
State's exhibit number 52, and you can see it in 51, but now the ruler is on, oops, try that again. Now the ruler is on that lower mark. Describe that for us.
This is like the lateral aspect of his body, or his right flank. And this wound does not penetrate into the body, but it kind of causes this deeper abrasion in this area. So this could be from like a spent projectile that might have hit something else and then hit his body.
Now the evidence gets even more complicated. The doctor has described another gunshot wound, this time entering through the lateral aspect of the right thigh and traveling upward into the abdomen. According to the testimony, the projectile damaged the intestines, required surgery, and another projectile was recovered during that operation. Then there's the separate injury that did not penetrate deeply into the body. The doctor explains that this wound could be consistent with a projectile that had already lost momentum after striking something else. That distinction is important because forensic pathology is not simply about identifying injuries. It's about interpreting how those injuries occurred and what they did to the body. And notice something else. The testimony also identifies older scars that were suggestive of previous gunshot wounds. That information may provide background, but it is not being presented as the cause of death here. The doctor is carefully separating prior injuries from the wounds associated with this fatal incident. So far, the evidence is creating a picture of multiple traumatic injuries, extensive emergency treatment, and serious internal damage. But the prosecution still has to establish identity and ultimately get the expert to state her final opinions. We're getting closer to the moment when all of this evidence is condensed into two crucial words: cause of death and manner of death.
And then hit his body, so it lost its momentum to be able to penetrate into his body further. So it kind of hit this area and created this wound on the side of his body.
Were there evidence within the medical records that Mr. Shakur had received bullet wounds sometime prior to the injuries that caused his death?
He had some scars in other areas of his body that were suggestive of that.
State's exhibit number 53. What are we looking at?
This is the back of his right hand, and on the ring finger he has an entrance gunshot wound. This path goes through the hand and goes through that finger and then fractures that bone right by the ring finger area.
And then 54,054. What are we looking at?
This is the exit aspect of that wound that we saw the entrance to on the back of the hand, and it kind of exits out the underside and partly in the webbing between those fingers.
Now you mentioned that during the surgery, UMC would have recovered one bullet, and then autopsy, another bullet was recovered?
That's correct.
And so, as it relates to the autopsy, showing you State's exhibit number 55. What are we looking at here?
This is the projectile that was recovered during the autopsy. This was the one underneath the sternal notch to which I referred earlier.
And just so the jury understands these when they get to the back room, that's the same bullet, it's just taken from the opposite side.
Yes, we take multiple angles of those projectiles, photos of multiple angles.
Your Honor, just for the record, what exhibit number is this one?
Mr. Gustavo?
56.
Okay.
Now, Doctor, in addition to not only the photographs, were there other records identifying Mr. Shakur within the coroner's office records?
We have both some medical records and some photographs, as well as the autopsy report, the investigation report, and the toxicology report as well.
Did you also have an affidavit from Mr. Shakur's mother indicating that's her son and he's dead.
Yes.
And were there also post-mortem fingerprints taken to confirm that information?
Yes.
This is
After
the point
reviewing-
where all of the individual pieces of evidence finally come together. The witness has reviewed photographs, medical records, the autopsy report, the investigation report, toxicology information, and identification materials. The testimony also describes an affidavit from Shakur's mother identifying him as her son, along with post-mortem fingerprints. Those details matter because the court has to establish that the medical evidence being discussed belongs to the person at issue in the case. And now comes the question the entire medical examination has been building toward. What caused the death? The answer is direct: gunshot wounds of the chest and abdomen. That conclusion ties the documented injuries to the fatal outcome. But there's another phrase the jury needs to understand, because manner of death has a specific meaning in forensic medicine. It is not the same thing as identifying the shooter, naming a suspect, or proving criminal responsibility. It is a classification concerning the circumstances surrounding the death. That distinction becomes especially important in courtroom coverage because medical testimony and criminal liability are two different layers of the case. The forensic pathologist can explain what happened medically. The court must ultimately deal with the broader legal questions using all of the evidence presented. So, as the final answer arrives, listen carefully to exactly what the doctor says, and just as importantly, what she does not say.
After reviewing all of those records, do you have an opinion as to the cause of death of Mr. Shakur?
Yes.
And what is that?
He died of gunshot wounds of chest and abdomen.
And do you have an opinion as to the manner of death?
Yes.
And what is that?
Homicide.
When a medical examiner uses the term homicide, what does that mean?
The simplest form is death at the hands of another.
Thank you. I pass the witness.
That brings the medical portion of this testimony to a very clear conclusion. Dr. Gavin testified that Shakur died from gunshot wounds to the chest and abdomen, and she classified the manner of death as homicide. She then explained that, in the simplest medical sense, homicide means death at the hands of another person. The key takeaway is that the testimony provides the forensic framework. The injuries were documented, the medical treatment was reviewed, the projectiles were accounted for, identification evidence was considered, and the expert ultimately connected the fatal outcome to the gunshot wounds. At the same time, viewers should keep the legal distinction straight. A forensic finding of homicide establishes a medical classification of the death. It does not, by itself, establish who fired the weapon or resolve every issue of criminal responsibility. Those questions require the broader body of evidence and the legal standards applied by the court. What do you think? Does this testimony provide a convincing medical explanation of what happened, or do you think the unanswered questions surrounding the shooting remain just as important? Either way, this testimony is significant because it turns a complex series of medical records and injuries into a clear forensic conclusion. If you found this case as shocking as we did, make sure to hit that like button, share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more jaw-dropping courtroom breakdowns.